perspective, we are always looking for correctness, okay, time efficiency, space efficiency, and optimization. Okay, two approaches, right? One is theoretical analysis. That is what this course is going to teach you a lot. But the other thing is empirical analysis. So we'll see what we touched upon what empirical analysis is. Like basically you're calculating the time, how much time it takes. Remember when I asked you to do the initial sort algorithms? I said, hey, put a timer there and tell me how much time each of those algorithms is taking. Some of the students have sent me their code. Great job. They have done a great job on that. Okay. So we discussed time efficiency, saying we determine the number of repetitions of basic operations, right, as a function of input size. And then we came up with that equation, right? As long as it is determined as what is the running time, that is Tn, and then you have the n is the input size, and then you have the execution time for any of the basic operations and times the number of basic operations. Pretty straightforward. Okay. The empirical analysis, we use the physical unit of time. We use some of the system constructs to calculate the time, and then we can analyze the data. Okay. I just put this in there to for you to refresh, just to see the values, what you get as n. N is the input size here. So as n tends towards infinity, different when we get to the algorithms, we talked about saying, hey, it's an order of n, order of log 2n, n log 2, n squared, n cubed, and so on. You can see the time it takes compared to the n value, right? So obviously, if you see this one here, you want to go from left to right, right? Log 2n algorithms are better than n algorithms. Similarly, they are better than n log 2n and so on. Okay. Then we talked about arrays and we talked about linked lists, which includes both single and doubly linked lists. Okay. So that is a quick summary. Besides, of course, a refresher on Java. And then I gave you a take-home collaborative work saying that you should be reviewing the object-oriented design principles. There was one entire slide deck put in the community. You should have reviewed that by now. Okay. Okay, let me monitor the chat here. Good morning, everyone. SVCW. Principal HM. Srinivas Wuddanti. Sorry, my Telugu is so bad now. My apologies. I'm so ashamed of that. Okay, you're all able to hear the audio well. Perfect. Okay, so now we'll jump into the let me put it in the presentation mode here. So at the 1 hour time, I would be taking a 5-minute break, stretch break for everyone. It's a pretty loaded module. Last time I taught the software engineering class, I was told that generally the breaks are not given and then students are not allowed to bring their tea or coffee. I'm not going to violate the rule, but I will be getting my cup of coffee in about another 40 minutes or so, where you can take a 5-minute stretch break. Okay. Let me put it in presentation mode there. Okay. So input, you have the algorithm and then you get the output. That's a nice picture there, right? Oranges. You have that churning, whatever you want to call it, orange squeezer, and then you get nice orange juice. Okay. So when you talk about these algorithms, one of the key things is the running time of the algorithm. So when you have these inputs to outputs going on, the running time typically grows with the input size, right? The more data you have, the more time it takes to execute. Common sense, right? Whenever we are talking formal things here, try to put it in perspective through some common sense terms. Okay. This is not a formal theorem type class, right? So you need to put it in perspective. Okay. So what we do typically in design and analysis of algorithms is, right, we are always trying to focus on what is the worst case, right? And then what is the best case. Okay. Why is average case time difficult to determine? The reason it is difficult to determine is, right, if you took courses in probability theory, which I assume you did, right? We talk about probability distribution functions and so on, right? So we do not know the distribution of the data. So most of the average case times is dependent on the distribution of the data. Okay. That is why we say, hey, it's a little bit challenging to know the average. Okay. So one way of trying to understand the the time in terms of how much time it takes to execute is experiment, right? So we all know what experiments are. So in the case of algorithms here, what we do, we write a program, right? Remember, I asked you to write your programs in Java and execute them. And then we run it with different inputs, right? Different types of data. And then we plot the results, right? So you can see here, here is an example of how that was done, where the input size is growing from 0 to 100 and the time in milliseconds is increasing. Typically, as the input size increases, the time increases as well. Pretty straightforward, easy concept, right? So far, so good. No one is lost yet. Okay. Now, are there any limitations of experimentation? Okay. It's okay, sir. You're good in Telugu. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. You made my day. You made me smile today. Good. Okay. So it is necessary. What happens when you do the experiment, right? Number one, you need to know how to implement the algorithm in a program, right? Now, if you are not a good programmer, it's kind of tough. Okay? Actually, it's kind of interesting, interesting thing here, talking about a programmer, right? Remember I talked to you about Dijkstra in the very first class, right? Dijkstra is my favorite, right? At least one of my favorites, Dijkstra Einstein. So when UT Austin decided to become famous university, they hired Dijkstra. So the computer science department of UT Austin went from nobody to top 5 in the country just because they had Dijkstra, right? So Dijkstra, very interesting from a programming viewpoint. It might shock you. He has not written a single program in his life on a computer. He is the world's most famous computer scientist. When I went to UT Austin, I had the pleasure of meeting him too, listening to his lectures. He always did his stuff on a piece of paper and pencil. Never wrote a program, I believe, in his life. But he wrote the best algorithms that we use. Okay. Okay, talking about experimentation, right? So obviously results are only empirical, right? They are not really indicative of the running time on other inputs. Okay. Now, how do you compare algorithms? You need to use the same hardware, same software. The conditions that you have to simulate to do the experiment, they have to be consistent across all the experimental cycles that you do. So quite challenging to do that. So then what do we have recourse to? We have a great tool that we have called theoretical analysis, right? So instead of writing code, you write high-level description, also known as pseudocode. Did we write pseudocode in our class already? Yes, no. We did. Remember, I opened up the whiteboard. You helped me come up with pseudocode, some kind of an algorithm, right? Then we characterize the running time as a function of the input size. So we say, okay, if the n, the reason why we call it n is because it's a variable, right? The input is a variable. Okay, we look at different types of inputs, and then the knowledge that you gain here, basically what you would do is you can evaluate the speed of an algorithm independent of the software and hardware environment. In essence, what you're saying is you can do it on a piece of paper. Now, what is the practical benefit of this? Let me pause here and ask you a question here. Take the last bullet. Allow us to evaluate the speed of an algorithm independent of the hardware software environment. I see a lot of curious ladies in the video here, principal_HM. If your audio is working, why don't one of you volunteer to tell me why this is a useful thing, evaluating the speed of an algorithm independent of hardware and software environment. Okay, one boy just sat there in the chair. Is he giving the mic to one of the girls there, or is he taking the mic? Even if you hide with a magazine, I can see you, man. Okay. So principal HM, if you have the mic there, give it to one of the, let's see the girl sitting right in front of the boy. Why do you think that's now the boy left, so we are in an indeterminate state now. If you know what finite state machines are. Has he gone to bring you the mic? Don't be shy. This is your class and you should. There you go. I think we should give her a big round of applause, I guess, for being brave. Let me, you're not on mute, so go ahead and speak. By the way, when I ask questions like that, by picking students, I want them to react fast. Because you have a lot of other students waiting in other colleges, right? Sooner the better. If for some reason your audio is not working, you say I pass, then I move to the next one in the video here. Okay, 3, 2, 1, 0. Are you ready? They are very shy. Okay, I'm going to pass from there to Chaitanya. Chaitanya, I'm unmuting you. So any volunteer from Chaitanya? I'm getting some static from Chaitanya, if you can. Okay, so the question clear? What is the advantage of evaluating the speed independent of hardware, software environment, especially from a practical perspective?
Find easy way. Find easy way.
Find easy way, sir.
Okay, I can't. Who is talking? Always give your name first. Okay, go ahead.
Sir, I'm Harsha, sir.
Excellent. Go ahead, Harsha.
To find an easy way, sir?
To find an easy way. What do you mean by to find an easy way? Let's probe that a little bit further. What is easy?
To reach the target.
Reach the
So
target.
instead of writing a program and doing it, go ahead.
To reach the target.
To reach the target. Okay, hold on to your thought there. I want someone else to come online and see if they have another perspective on that. Let's pick the guys in Jntuk Kakinada. Is there anyone in Jntuk Kakinada there? I can't see the video. Okay, no, I don't see I don't see the video there. Okay, anybody from Aditya, if they are there, you're welcome to answer that. Okay, time is up, right? I cannot wait forever, right? So the reason why I say that's an interesting thing from practical perspective is, right? Of course, number one, of course, you're saving time. If you look at it, you're all working on projects in the industry, right? Why do I need to spend 3 days writing a program only to figure out that algorithm sucks? It is very bad, right? So the time is gone. When the time is gone means time is money, right? So I've just spent 3 days of valuable time, which translates to thousands of dollars. And then I figure out the algorithm is really, really bad. If I can do it at the design stage itself, I would save all the time, right? Pretty straightforward. By the way, none of these questions, when I ask you, they are not meant to trick you or anything. They are all just common sense stuff. I'm just trying to encourage you to talk. That's all. So what did we say? We learned this too, right? How do we write the algorithms? We use the pseudocode. Okay. The pseudocode is combination of English and kind of like if statement, else statement, blocks of code, some programming concepts come into play there. Oh, I don't want to pass the ball to him. So here is an example, right? Pseudocode. So you use typically if then else, while, repeat until, pretty standard stuff. And then I made you use some of the Java examples to explain to me. So you can see the methods, return value. So these are all the kind of things that you can use in your pseudocode. Mind you, you're not writing proper syntax. You're just using the keywords to convey how the algorithm or the design flows. Now, typically let me mute some of you guys here. I'm getting some. Give me a second. I want to mute all of you guys. Aset, can you mute yourself, please? Okay, let me mute all of them. Okay. Okay, I muted you. So when you are talking about this analysis of algorithms, right? These are some of the functions that you would see very regularly. Okay, one is we say, hey, it is a constant function, meaning it doesn't depend on the input size. Okay, it always takes the same constant amount of time to get to the result. Okay, an example is from computer engineering viewpoint is random access memory, right? It doesn't matter which memory location you're trying to access. For those of you who have taken operating systems and things like that, you know these concepts. Every location in random access memory is constant time. Okay, then you have certain functions. They are of the log n type. Okay, we'll see some examples of these things. Linear is n, so n log n, and then you have quadratic functions, cubic and exponential. Obviously, going from top to bottom, you know that the top one is the most efficient, the bottom one is the least efficient. So this author here has drawn this chart on the right to basically show you how the function growth rate happens as a function of the input size. So if you look at the linear, it is growing linearly, right? As the input increases, that goes like that. Quadratic, you can see there's a steeper curve. It takes more time. Cubic, still more. So if you continue to add the lines, you can see that linear is perhaps a good one. For those of you who still remember some concepts from your high school algebra, I think algebra or geometry, I don't know where you learn these things. These are graphic functions, right? Uh, Gn equal to 1 is a straight line. And then if you see Gn equal to n, it's a linear function, another line going proportionally up. 1 is constant, right? And then you have log n squared. This is not a mathematics class per se, so I would move away from there. Okay, so what did we learn? We need to, in order to do a non-programming way of algorithmic analysis, we need to have some idea of what are the primitive operations. Okay, so primitive operations are defined as the basic computations performed by an algorithm. Okay, you should be able to identify them in pseudocode. If I say an assignment statement, I equal to I plus 1, that is a statement. I should be able to understand that in pseudocode. Okay. Now, how you write these primitive statements, since it's pseudocode, it is independent of the programming language. However, from a practical perspective, since we are all used to some programming language or other, some of the programming language constructs do come into play when you're writing pseudocode. Okay. Now, again, exact definition is not important because what we are trying to do is an estimate. It is never exact. Remember, the exact value you can only get when you are executing it as a program. Everything else is called an estimate. Okay. So here are some examples of primitive expressions. To evaluate an expression, assigning value, indexing it into an array. All these things are calling a function or a procedure. Okay. 1 second. One second, guys. Jntuk Kakinada was having some problems on audio. After they fix, they'll come back. Guide, I'm muting you. Okay. Got it? So these are some examples. Now, how do we count them, right? Yes, we said these are the primitive operations. So how do you count them in an algorithm? So here is one example of counting, right? Let's look at this one, right? What are we saying here? So there's some kind of a function here called public static double, array max double data. So it is taking some kind of an array, right? So if you look at line 3, there's some kind of an assignment statement. That's not equal to sign, remember? That is an assignment statement. All of you have learned some basic programming, you know that, right? Of course, if you learn Pascal, that's an equal to sign. In C or Java, all of these places, it is assignment statement. Okay. And then you have some kind of a for loop statement. Okay, so let's look at it, right? These are the type of concepts that are absolutely relevant to you. I do not know whether how your internal exams are, what kind of questions they ask. I remember vaguely from memory. These are all the type of things that they ask in internal exam. Not here in India. Okay. So if you look at step 3, right, it says 2 operations. When I looked at this example, it took me a while to figure out why it is called 2 operations as opposed to 1 operation. Anyone can answer that by putting it in chat? Why it is 2 and not 1? line 3, it says it's the primitive operations is 2. My first thought was it should be only 1. Why is it 2? That is the question. Somebody is answering. Don't answer privately, answer it for everyone, please. Guide, go ahead and answer it for everyone by selecting everyone in the drop down. Perfect, you got it. So one step for, again, you answered it privately, answer it to everyone, right? Let me put it in the chat. That saves me time if you answer it for everyone. And once somebody answered, others don't need to answer because we are moving on, right? So one step is for the assignment and one step is to get the length. Remember, data is an object and then you're getting the length. So you're invoking another function there. So it is 2. OK, step number 4, 2 operations again. Why? Because assignment and then you're accessing an array element. OK. And similarly, step number 5. So when you go through the for loop here, OK, how did you get to the 2n operations, right? Don't answer it right now. 5, 6, 7, 8. So you figure that out, right? Why? Convince yourself as to why those steps are like that. OK, so that is how you're counting the. So here is a block of code and then you are. Sorry, I did something there. So here is a block of code and then you are literally going through these steps and counting the number of operations. OK, so now if you take this approach, OK, what are we doing now? Now we are estimating the running time, right? How many times these primitive operations need to be executed. OK, so you can see how they're calculating, saying what is the worst case and what is the best case, right? The reason why you have the worst case and best case is this for loop is not going to go to the entire list from 1 to n, right? The reason is once you see that condition being matched, you're going to come out of it. OK, once the condition matched, you come out of it. So you don't need to go all the way to the end. The for loop doesn't need to be executed. But the worst case is you have to execute it all the way, right? And if you do that analysis, you will see that it has to execute 5n plus 5 in the worst case, and best case is 4n plus 5. OK, so he's going to do some analysis saying, OK, so you come up with this kind of equation saying here is the worst case and the best case. And then you are also taking the time it takes to execute the fastest primitive operation, right? And then the slowest. Anything to do with array access is going to be random. It's constant, so it's fastest, right? Anything to do with search is going to take longer. Okay, so he comes up with some kind of an equation saying, hey, these are the boundaries for this particular algorithm. Okay, still simple enough. I hope I didn't lose the audience yet. Okay, now here is an example for you. Remember, I made you do these algorithms and come up with the times. Now, people who have done that, this is the fun part for them, right? They'll say, aha, now I get the aha moment, right? Wow, why did this professor make us write these things and do all of those things? There's a reason why we build up like that. Some of your smart Alex might have thought it is so slow, right? Why am I doing all this stupid thing? But as a professor, as a teacher, we cater to the 80% of the students who need to learn. There's always 20% class who are smarter than the professor. Okay, I learned that a long time ago from my dad. My dad was known as the best professor in OU Engineering College, right? One of the very best, like your vice chancellor's dad. You all know who your vice chancellor is, right? The students, I mean, faculty would know. The vice chancellor is Professor Kumar. Turns out he's a good friend of mine. He and I grew up in OU campus together while our dads were faculty members in OU. Okay, so the reason why I did that was if you now go back to your code where you put the timing algorithm, look if those things kind of match these numbers. So here is the author comparing two types of sort, insertion sort and merge sort. We have not seen merge sort, right? Now don't ask me what merge sort is right now, because I don't memorize any of these algorithms, by the way. I like to follow Einstein's thing, right? What you can find in a book, there is no need to memorize. You just need to understand the basic concepts, right? So insertion sort takes n squared by 4, whereas merge sort takes 2n log n, right? Now, he has done some study here. You can see when they're sorting a million items, insertion sort takes 70 hours and merge sort takes 40 seconds. Now, students, you can see the power of it, right? Why we are trying to analyze the algorithms. There's a reason why super duper programmers get paid very highly. I don't know how it is in India. Here, a new college graduate, I mean, I can only speak for my son and a couple of his friends, right? All of them, they are just fresh graduates. When they come out, their salary package is 200,000. Programming jobs, Google, LinkedIn, Microsoft, Uber, where my son is joining. So if you become good, because this is what they are actually asking in the interviews. Okay, so at least at your level, you need to memorize somewhat, or you need to do so many programs you get it. Okay, you do good in these algorithms in the interview, you get highly paid. So another motivation for you to study hard on this. Okay. Why did I go here? Okay, I skipped one slide here. Hold on. Okay. Let me pause here before I get into the big O notation. Let's take a couple of questions, and then I will take my 3-minute break, 3 to 4 minute break to get my cup of tea. My mouth is drying up, and then we'll get into the big O notation. Okay, but first, a couple of questions. Let me unmute Sentence Chirala. They never were able to talk via audio. Let me give them an opportunity. Sentence Chirala, can you say hello on your microphone, please? Okay, Sentence Chirala. Sentence Chirala. Please say hello using the microphone. That's how I would know that they are able to hear me, right? Okay, in the meantime, I will mute them. You can unmute yourself and say hi later. SVCW, any questions, comments so far, either from the students or faculty members? Is there a faculty member present in SVCW today? Okay, they are fine. Okay, great. Okay, Vasavi did not speak, never had a chance to talk. Okay. Vasavi, do you have any questions? I know you are able to hear the audio and you can speak. Is there a faculty coordinator in the class today? In Vasavi? Okay, they are not. Cannot hear you well. Okay, no problem. I'll give an opportunity. Principal HM, they are always very eager. Principal HM, any questions, comments? I'm just giving some people randomly. I'm not doing in any order. Is there any faculty member present today in principal underscore HM? Is there a faculty member present in principal underscore HM today? Okay. What's your name? మీ పేరు చెప్పాలి. Okay, I'm getting a little bit of static. Ask your guy to reduce your volume there, కొంచెం. Go ahead. Great. Good. I'm able to hear you slightly, but I hope this is in line with what you teach in your college when you're teaching this class.
Yes, sir.
Excellent, excellent. If you want to add on when I'm doing these things, this is again an open invitation to the faculty members, right? I told that in the beginning, I'll say it again. You are all welcome to add on your own knowledge here when we are doing in these gaps, okay? That's how the students would learn better. Okay, thank you. Okay, great. So here is my, I would call it my quick break time, right? So this is something all students should get used to it when you're taking class from Professor Pratap Chilakanti. He always loves to drink tea while doing his lectures. So I'm taking a 3-minute break here, stretch break. We used to do yoga exercises during sirs and others would be telling you is the big O notation. So what is the big deal about the big O notation, right? So it, at a theory level, it shows the limiting behavior of a function, okay? Meaning what is at some point of time, it should have some kind of a bound. What is the bound, right? What are the constraints, right? As the input size keeps going towards infinity, right? So how does the behavior gets limited of a function? That's what the big O notation is, okay? Now this is all plain BS, right? This slide, it does not mean anything to anyone, including me. Okay, but I have to say the theory first, right? Then I'll show you examples. Okay, for some reason my slides are jumping. Give me a second. Okay, so what do? I take let's take an example and then look at it, right? Okay, so why did I get this one? Okay. Okay, there it is. Yeah, I got it. Okay, so let's look at the scenario here, right? So what you see on the right is a simple algorithm. So now remember, now we are getting into the big O notation, okay? Pay very careful attention. The next 1 hour is the most important hour of your entire professional life, right? Career in computer science. Okay, I'm talking like Donald Trump right here, the US presidential candidate. This is the most important 1 hour of your life, okay? So I want all of your neurons in your brain to be firing up, understanding this one right now. Okay, so what do we have here? Algorithm, we have a sequential search. There's an array, okay, with n entries, and we are looking for x. Okay, so output is if x is in array L, then output its index. Where in that array it is the index. Okay, else the output is 0. So that is the algorithm we have to write. So we start with index 1. Now, obviously, since you're computer science guys, you know that our indices start at 0, remember, even though the example says 1. Our index is 0 in C, C++ and all that, okay? I think unless you use Pascal, which is index 1. So what are we trying to do here? I'm saying, okay, while index is less than or equal to n, because it's an n element array, right? So I have to go through all the elements, and then at each array index of that, you are checking if it is not equal to x. That means you have not found the match, so you increment the index and continue to do that. Remember, this entire while statement goes from here to index equal to index plus 1. Now, after going through that loop, if index is greater than n, then index is equal to 0. That means you have not found the match. Otherwise, you return the index. Straightforward, right? Programming 101. When I say programming 101, what we call it programming 101 here, because that means, okay. Okay, so now we want to analyze this algorithm. Now, remember I introduced to you the concept of primitive operations, right? A few slides ago, we looked at primitive operations, right? Assignments, array indices, right? So now if you go here, what is the worst case for this algorithm, meaning how many iterations we have to go through? N, right? Because while index is less than or equal to n. So the worst case is you have to execute the while statement n number of times. Got it? Okay, now I said, could it be 3n? Why did I say could it be 3n? Who wants to answer that question? You can put it in chat. Anyone who wants to answer the first person to answer, then we'll move on. I said worst case is 3n. Could I have written 3n? Shall we take a vote and the majority wins? that works too. Okay, there are a lot of smart people here. Okay, let's see. Not audible from Mandava Engineering College. Okay, let me see. So not audible from Mandava. Okay. Mandava cannot hear. Okay, I put it in chat so that way one of the people can help you out offline. So somebody said that, oh, it's interesting. See, somebody said that condition takes 2 and index increment is 1, index 1. Okay. Somebody said it is 3n. From guide to everyone. So guide is saying, so here is an interesting scenario, right? So guide is saying, no, it cannot be 3n. Whereas Jntuk Kakinada said, so it is 3n. So guide, sorry, the dogs are barking. Somebody came outside. Guide says it is n, but Jntuk says it is 3n. Okay. Now, isn't it interesting that all of these guys are experts, right? But you can see the differing opinions, right? What I would say is it really doesn't matter. The way you resolve that issue is, right? Initial analysis, it's okay. You can still call it 3n, but think of it as if n tends to infinity, n is same as 3n, right? Remember we said big O notation nothing but as n tends to infinity there. Limit n tends to infinity. Now don't ask me what limits are and differentiation integration, okay? I forgot a long time ago. But I guess you understand that, right? But initial analysis is 3n or n, we remove the constants. There are a couple of slides down the road I'm going to tell you about that. But it's okay. If you start off with 3n, that's okay, not a big deal. But eventually when you apply some of the other techniques there, the constant 3 would go away and it boils down to 1. Okay, that's kind of explain in the next bullet, right? It says the very first line and the last two lines are not counted. What is the first line there? Index equal to 1. It's a constant, okay? So we ignore them. When compared to large values of n, we ignore them. And then we usually are left with the highest degree term in n. The reason is that is what dominates the total amount of time. Okay, so this is the concept. Okay, the concept that we used here, where we take the highest order of n. Okay, whatever is the dominating number, input size. Okay, that is called the big O. Big O meaning capital O. Okay. When you write research papers, you have to use the right notation, because if you make a typo and use it as small o, all of a sudden the small o means a completely different meaning in this analysis. So this is the big O notation. Okay. Now let's go to the next slide. 1 second, please. Okay, I just had to make the dogs not bark. We'll see if they'll cooperate now for some more time. So here is a formal definition of big O. Faculty members, I do not know how you teach data structures and algorithms. There are many different ways of teaching. I just call this my way, right? There are other ways of teaching, and all approaches are correct as long as the students get it. Okay. So I'm defining big O in this slide, but before I do that, I want you to understand the example that I gave in the table here, right? Because you need to understand these two things here to understand big O. So I've defined two functions here. One is function fn equal to 100 n squared, right? 100 n squared. Another function called gn, which is n raised to 4. Okay, simple maths, right? Again, simple math that you all understand, and I completely forgot. I can only teach, but don't ask me questions. What is a function now? Okay. I don't know if other faculty members remember what a function is, mathematical definition of function. It has something to do with Venn diagrams and set theory and all that. Okay. So what am I showing there? I have different values of n. So function n is 100 times n squared, right? That's 10,000. G of n also is 10,000 for n equal to 10. But beyond n equal to 10, those two functions drastically differ, right? So if you're plotting it here, you can see the pink line is the g function. See how the time as the input is increasing. What is n? N is input size, remember, right? So as the number increases to the right, up to 10, they are okay. Okay, actually up to 10, the function n is more efficient. See, the pink line is underneath the purple line there, correct? But at this point, at that break-even point, if I can call it, or the inflection point, or the tipping point, I think tipping point is the right term to use. G, if you look at the G, it drastically goes up. Right? This is the most important 1 hour of your computer science life. I mean, I'm exaggerating at least, right? A little bit, but you get the idea. Okay. So here, the way we define big O is we are saying let f and g be functions. Now, if they are functions, you have to give them the domain, right? The namespace from the set of integers or the set of real numbers. Okay. They are functions from the set of integers or real numbers to the set of real numbers. So function is always mapping between two sets. Remember, I think I vaguely said that, right? Some Venn diagrams and set theory comes into play. And then we say that fx is said to be the order of gx, that big O. See that capital O there, which is read as fx is big O of gx. Okay, now if and only if, okay, there are constants called C and NO, and then they meet this criteria here. Ignore the bars, vertical bar, that is magnitude, right? We take the positive. That's what the in maths they want the magnitude. We call it magnitude, right? We ignore the negative sign. We say fx should be less than or equal to CGX whenever x is greater than n0. Okay. Let me ask you a question here. Who understood that equation? Show of hands. I do see video from Principal HM. Who did you, the girl that I'm seeing right in the front, do you understand that equation? You're smiling. You're turning your face. Let me tell you, I don't understand that equation, if that makes you feel happy. Right? But it's okay. We'll get there. OK, the reason why we need to have some math here, right? We cannot avoid, when you're talking data structures and algorithms, a little bit of mathematical formula and all come into play. Thankfully, I don't teach theorems in this class. They're actually theorems. If you take my automata theory, we get into theorems. OK, but let's look at the example here. What does it really mean, right, in practical terms? OK, here are some examples to make it to make you understand that. OK, faculty members, other faculty members who are there, if you have easier ways of teaching it, please share it with the students and with me. I'm game for it. OK, there are multiple ways of presenting the concept, right? OK, so here is an example, right? If you take this 5x plus 10, I'm saying this is function. Remember, this is function, f function, x squared is the g function. OK, now if you take 5x plus 10 is less than 5x squared plus 10x squared, what did we do here? We basically multiplied the x's there, which is equal to 15x squared for x greater than 1. So when you give c equal to 15 and n equal to 1, you get that equation where you say this becomes the order of x squared because it is less than or equal to. When you say order of, what it basically means is the f function is less than or equal to the g function. Okay, now I'll go back to the previous slide. Now, if you don't understand it first time, please don't worry about it because these are the type of concepts which takes a lot of effort to understand. OK, nothing to be ashamed of. OK, let me show you the graph here. See this fx function here? It is always, it's either less than or equal to at some point, right? So that is what we are saying in the big O notation. When we talk about the order, big O, let me move. Sorry, I moved back too fast. OK, here. OK, big O concerns with the less than or equal to relation between functions for large values of the variable. So when I give you 5x plus 10, we said it's of the order of x squared. How did we come up with x squared? I'll repeat one more time there, right? So you are basically taking the x term, right? You have 5x plus 10. The next order term of x is x squared because the first term is x raised to 1, right? And then you added that x squared to both and then the constant. OK, and then if you multiply, if you look at the equation, actual equation becomes 5x plus 10 equal to 15x squared. Now if you add a constant c, because in the 15x squared c is 15, right? And n equal to 1. OK, so then 15, if you basically n equal to 1 means you substitute x, right? N equal to input size 1. So 15 is equal to 15. So that equal to point, they both are same. After that, meaning after the first term, from second term onwards, the G function is going to be higher than the F function. Okay, let me stop here for a second to answer questions, comments. Okay, let me go down here. Okay, I'm acknowledging principal H&M 3n plus 2. Yeah, you're right. Technically, you're right in the previous case. But again, once you ignore the smaller elements, when n gets larger, it boils down to n basically. Okay, so going back to the big O notation here, questions, comments on that. The basic thing that you have to remember first and foremost, some things you have to memorize, right? To begin with, till it gets ingrained in your hardwired in your brain. Okay, it is less than or equal to relation. Okay, so at what point, so whenever you're given an algorithm, you say, hey, how would you apply it, right? You basically apply it saying, going back to here, at what point, go back to this simple example that I gave you here. When in doubt, go back there. Fn equal to 100n squared, Gn equal to n raised to 4, right? At some point, the Gn is going to be greater than F. So F is either less than or equal to after that point. And what is that point is what we are trying to see. Okay. Now you will get plenty of opportunities in this class to practice this. So that way you get a good feel for it before your exams. Okay, let me go to the next slide. Why am I going there? Okay. Okay, so repeating the slide in a slightly different way, same definition, given functions fn and gn, different ways of writing the mathematical formula, right? We say that fn is of the order of gn if there are positive constants c and no, such that fn is less than or equal to c of gn for n greater than n0. This is a pretty standard linear algebra type of course, right? We all learned that. Even in intermediate, we learned that. Okay. So here is a example, right? 2n plus 10. What is the order of it? The order of it is order of n. Now it's very easy to say that, right? Because it should be less than or equal to c raised to n, because c is some kind of constant, right? So if you solve this problem here, you would get c equal to 3 and n0 equal to 10. So when you plug in those values, you see at that point of time, this equation is satisfied. Okay. Actually, you would not be in engineering unless you knew this math. The entrance exam has math questions, right? If I remember right. So that is how this comes to. Okay. Big O notation. The mantra is we are always looking for what is the less than or equal to, meaning it's like the upper bound, right? Less than or equal to means upper bound. Okay. Okay. Here is a counter example just to see that, right? The function n squared is never order of n. When you say, hey, when n goes to infinity, isn't n and n squared pretty much infinity, right? But if you solve the equation there, n squared less than or equal to cn, that means n is less than or equal to c. And c is always a constant, right? So the condition is not satisfied. So n squared can never be equal to order of n. Now, at your convenience at home, you convince yourself about these graphs, how these graphs are drawn for a given set of numbers with n, 10n, 100n, and n raised to 2, n squared, how the graphs go. Because that is a legitimate question in an exam, at least here, when I give these exams here. Okay, now let me continue. What do I have here? Okay, so before I hit the return button, who wants to answer? What is the order of 7n minus 2? So Jntuk we said for a given f and g, multiple c and no are possible. Uh, yes, I agree. But whatever is the first c, right? Without getting into esoteric functions, for normal functions that we are discussing here, how would you get multiple c's and no's? You can give me an example, not right away, but after the class or something like that. But yeah, definitely they're possible. So here I'm talking about more bigger examples. Before I hit the return button, what is the order of 7n minus 2? Quick, it's a 1 second answer, right? Anyone can type in the chat. Then I'll hit the return button. Order of n, you're absolutely right. You are right. Okay. And then he gives you an explanation there, right? C is greater than 0 and n is greater than 1. It's basically, we learned this even in pre-calc, right? I don't know whether you call it algebra or pre-calc, whatever, the limiting functions, right? That's what it is. Okay, so you can see now when I do, what is the legitimate question in exam, students, is this. It's not only order, we'll also say, give me the values of C and N, right? Okay, next one, Chirala. Oh, big claps to Chirala. They are chatting. Okay, next time we can talk to. So second one, Inti, second one. Guide to everyone. That is the second question. Order of log n. No. Second one, n cube. Okay. Pretty straightforward. Order of n cube. And then again, C, and whenever you do those things, always give some C value and n value. And then third one, Chirala, good job. Excellent. Okay, order of log n. Okay, got it? That's a tough concept, right, students? Or is it a piece of cake for you? For me, these are all very tough concepts, okay? So what does the big O notation give us? I screwed up my slide here. Okay, it gives you an upper bound, right? The growth rate of a function. Okay, so how do we interpret that? In English terms, when we say the statement Fn is order of Gn, what it means is the growth rate of Fn is no more than the growth rate of Gn. Again, go back to the very first slide that I showed you the graph, right? Gn was kind of going up, right? Fn was below Gn. Okay. If you see any video there, I think one of my daughters came and she was watching the lecture. Okay, great. Now, what happens is, look at this one here, right? This table. Okay. How do you interpret the table? You are saying Fn is of the order of Gn. It could also be the other way around, right? Gn could be the order of Fn if it is less than or equal to, right? The other thing also is possible, right? So he created a table here, right? So in the Fn is of the order of Gn, that means Gn is growing more, that is yes, right? And here it is no. Now if Fn grows more than Gn, then Gn becomes order of Fn, that's why it is yes. Here it becomes no. And if they both have the same growth, both the conditions become valid. Okay. So here are some additional rules on that, right? So if Fn is a polynomial of degree d, then Fn is of the order of ND. That's what we did, right? We dropped the lower order terms and then we removed the constant factors. Okay. Now, interestingly, one of the things that you have to do here is use the smallest possible class of functions. That means if you have 2n, right? 2n is of order of n. Instead of calling 2n is the order of n squared. Remember, I think one of the comments here was you can have multiple values of n and multiple values of c and all that, right? There's one comment here by principal underscore HM. Okay, I think they are the one who commented that. True, because this is not like a fixed, it's not a constant value, right? You can have multiple of them, but always try to simplify that. Use the smallest possible one. That is what it says, right? Always keep it simple. Yes, both answers are true here. If you say order of n or order of n squared, in this case, both answers are true, but order of n is simpler, right? Because it's linear. Okay. And then somebody said order of 3, and remember we talked about the very first example. Say, is it order of n or is it order of 3n? Both are correct, but then since as n goes to infinity, you can get rid of the constant there. So all this thing that we do, what we have done is known as the asymptotic algorithmic analysis. Okay, asymptotic is a mathematical term, right? You probably learned that in your calculus or trigonometry. Okay, so we get the running time in big O notation. And the way we do that is we find the worst case number executed as a function of the input size. I gave you the examples there with the array index and so on. And then we express this function with a big O notation. Okay. Since constant factors and lower order items are dropped, we can disregard them when counting primitive operations. That's what we did, right? For example, when we did the index equal to 1, we did not count that because those are all constant. There is no n involved there. Okay. Okay. Good idea for the students to do some quick refresher on math. These are all the things that you need to know. Okay. Now, if you ask me, do I know all of those things? I can tell you emphatic no. I don't know any of those things. If you ask my 10th grade daughter, she says, I know nothing about trigonometry and geometry and pre-calc and calculus. Even though I'm a pretty smart guy, I think. We forget, right? But it's a good idea when you're doing data structures and algorithms, you want to review some of these things. Believe me, I'm reviewing them too. It's not like I know them. In the process of teaching this class, I'm reviewing them too. Okay. I spent significant time preparing for these classes, any class, not just this, right? So some concepts, some of them you may or may not remember, review them as we go along. Okay, I muted myself accidentally. Can you hear me now? You should be able to hear you now, right? Yeah, I accidentally muted myself. So I hope you got that point, right? What is the intuitive notion of the big O and the big omega and then the big theta, right? So big O deals with less than or equal to between Fn and Gn, right? Whenever you're talking about these big O's, you have to have two functions, function n, Fn and Gn. If Fn is asymptotically less than or equal to Gn, that is big O. If it is greater than Gn, it is big omega. And if it is equal, then it is big theta. Okay. Now, obviously, these kinds of concepts take practice to understand, right? So you can see here some examples which I'm using of of omega and theta, right? So if you look at the first bullet point, phi n squared equal to omega n squared. Okay. So again, whenever you have to see whether it is true or false, you have to figure out if there is a constant c and an integer constant no greater than or equal to 1. Okay. So if you put c equal to 5 and no equal to 1, that condition is satisfied. Right now, what does phi n squared is omega n squared? What does it mean? Fn is greater than or equal to gn, right? So phi n squared is greater than or equal to n squared. Okay, now the second one, phi n squared is omega n. If you look at c values of n and 0, remember this again goes back to one of the comments that was made by earlier by one of the colleges there, right? The values could be different. Got it? And then the third bullet, same thing, where for the same function, we're able to show for different values of c and n, all the two non-go notation applicable there, meaning they both are equal. Got it? Questions, comments? Okay, let me go to the next slide. Now, in case, just like we talk about big sister, big brother, little brother, we have the little brothers of little o called little o and little omega. Okay. Now, what does little o and little omega mean? These are the definitions, right? What it basically means is there's a relationship between all these, right? Big O, big omega, and big theta. So if you have a function which is of the order of gx, meaning it is less than or equal to gx, remember that, but not theta of gx. What does theta mean? Theta means equal to, remember, fx equal to gx. Remember, I'm already in my mind, I'm hardwiring my my big O to less than or equal to, theta to equal to, and then omega to greater than or equal to. So the first condition says if it is less than or equal to gx, but not equal to gx, meaning it is less, then fx is said to be of the small order of gx. Okay, that's a little o. Okay, little o of gx. Same concepts apply to little omega. So I gave you some examples there. Students, I want you to convince yourself when I give you that example. What do you need to do? Remember, I said it is fair game to ask for C value and the N value. You should plug in the C values and the N values and see what those values are to convince yourself that these examples are valid. Understood? So here is a small question for you to ponder. 3x squared minus 3x minus 5 is omega x squared. Yes or no? Somebody can put it in chat or somebody can talk about it. I saw a lot of interaction from a lot of colleges today. Okay, you're able to hear me now, right? Yeah, perfect. Not audible for Mandava. Oh, please repeat last two slides, sir. Okay. I don't know which two slides, but I'll repeat it anyway, no problem. I think I did, if I remember right. If you still want me to repeat, I'll be happy to repeat it, okay? From omega definition, okay. Somebody wanted me to repeat the omega definition. Big omega. So what it is again, the way I remember them is basically this is the symbol, okay? If there's a constant, first of all, they should have a constant C and NO, where the f of n is greater than or equal to CGN for n greater than n0. So in the previous case, when we did the big O notation, Fn was always the growth of Fn. Remember, these are all growth functions, right? As the input size grows. Remember, very first slide I showed you was a table of and a graph. Keep that image in your mind. Okay. So as the at some point of time when Fn becomes greater than or equal to Cgn, then it is big omega. We say big omega g of n. Okay. And then so mathematically it's less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, right? Those are the three combinations, right? Don't get it too detailed into permutations and combination, but there are three pretty standard stuff. Less than, greater than, equal to. So we already took care of less than or equal to. The other one was greater than or equal to. The reason why we have equal to notation in the first two is there's an inflection point, right? After that point, they diverge. If you go back to the very first slide in the graph, you see F and G intersect at one point. After that, they diverge. That is the reason why you need that equal to sign. Okay. Now, whereas big theta, they both are constant, meaning they both are equal. Both the functions are equal for a given C and a given N. If they're equal, you call it big theta. Okay. Now, if you go back to my slide here, I'm saying if I have, and then I gave you some examples. Again, you have to practice these examples. It's one thing. By the way, in order for me to put together these examples and the slide and all that, it took me 2 hours. Okay. It's not like I just come and then show something and then I'm off. It took me 2 hours to go over these things, convince myself, take a piece of paper, do the exercises myself. Students, you think faculty members don't do it? They do, believe me. I work very hard to make sure I understand all of these things before I tell you, right? Some of them I don't understand. I'll be very frank too, but most often I do. Okay. Then I asked you this one. What am I asking here? Basically, if you look at the question here, by the way, student, this is a legitimate exam question, right? That is the omega. Yes, it's unfair for you to remember what the big omega is, right? Big omega says the left side of the function is f, right side of the function is g. Omega tells me is the left side greater than or equal to the right side. That is the omega notation, right? If I put that instead of this one, I put the theta sign, then that will become equal to. So in this case, what is the answer? You don't have to answer now. Okay, but it is there for you to answer at some point of time. I don't know why I had an empty slide there. Okay, growth rate functions, right? Remember, I kind of gave you that these are the functions that we talk about in algorithms. But here, to kind of conclude this chapter, I gave you examples. Okay, of what order of one example is in data structures and algorithms. An array lookup is an order of 1. A RAM lookup is an order of 1. Okay. We did not do search algorithms yet, but when you do that, you will see binary search is the order of log n. Okay. Linear search. Remember, we did the sequential search example in the slide deck. That's the order of n. Okay. So n star log n. I don't know whether quick sort is, anyone remembers if quick sort is n star log n? Or is quick sort log 2n? I don't remember what it is. I have to see. Students, I don't know if you know quick sort. Quick sort is done by a very famous scientist called Tony Hoare. Tony Hoare is a professor in one of the top universities in UK. So he became world famous because he invented quicksort. So those were the days when you can honor of meeting him too at UT Austin. So when he was introduced by Dijkstra, that's what the story they shared. Hey, Tony Hoare is famous just because of one algorithm called quicksort. I think gone are the days of becoming world famous by an algorithm. I don't know if we can still become famous. Okay, then you have n log n efficient sorting algorithms. Remember you did the selection sort? That is the order of n squared. Okay, so okay, so that is the, and then of course the most efficient to the least efficient is going from left. So that concludes this chapter. C equal to 5. Okay, oh, you answered that question already. Excellent. That is exactly. Okay, so from Vasavi to everyone, somebody came with C equal to 2 and 0 equal to 5. Look at the chat. Did you put them in private or public? Everyone, right? Vasavi, right? Chaitanya said C equal to 5. I don't know if it's equal to 2 or 5. Honestly, I have to go look back, right? But whatever is the case, I trust both of you. How about that? Both of you are right. Subject to verification. It's basically plug and play of the numbers to see the equation. Which way the equation is satisfied. Is it less than or equal to or greater than or equal to? Okay. Okay, so in preparation for let me ask you a couple of quick questions. That concludes the main portion of the lecture. We still have 7 minutes left. Let's take care of a few things here. Let me, since I have a lot of institutions here, can you all of you put it here? Who send me the roster, please? No, I received the roster from JNTUV. I received it from JNTUK. I think I received it from Gait and Chaitanya, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. But please send me the rosters. Okay. That should be fairly easy task for you to do that. And students, I have not checked the Lensu platform to see if you have all enrolled there or not. Remember, I told you I'm going to turn it off, right? The time is now. I'm giving you one grace period now. By the time we do our class on Thursday, for sure. To open it for you, you have to give me $1,000. Okay. So please go ahead and enroll there. I'm going to post these 2 slide decks in the community. And then let's have some fun in the community. Put some questions there. Put some, let's say, examples of algorithms which are of different orders of growth rate function. And if you come up with some esoteric algorithm somewhere that you found, please go ahead and put it there. Share it. Share your knowledge with others. Okay. Further administrative functions is when is your, what do you call it? It's called midterm, right? When is your midterm exam? My keyboard spacebar is not working, so typing would be a little bit sloppy there. January 18th. Okay, so how is the midterm given? Does each college give their own midterm exam, or is it all given like university sends you the paper? JNTUK sends you the paper to all the colleges. So is it the So each college has its own midterm test, meaning they prepare their own questionnaire, own paper. Okay, so no, that I know you're all under Jntuk, but I am trying to understand midterm because the way I do midterm here, I give the midterm, right? So in this case, the colleges which are participating in the online class for me, I'll be very happy to prepare a midterm and give it to you. If that is what you want me to do, I'll be very happy to do. All of you, since you are all of you taking the same class, it's fair for all the students, right? Now, do you have any restrictions from the university that how the midterm has to be conducted, or I can suggest most of the way the testing is done here is my tests at least are more like teamwork based. There's nothing to memorize. It's about problem solving, right? And they have the faculty member can proctor the exam, but teams of two can work on it together. Open book, open mind, open everything. So if you want to do something like that, please let me know. That's what we did in my software engineering class. And both the students and faculty had a blast with it. It's a different type of testing, not the traditional way of doing it. Okay. You don't have to answer that now, but I'll be happy to prepare the questionnaire for you. January 18th. So I still have a few more minutes. Let me bring up one more thing here to show something here for you.